All right, Shalom. Here's the brother Nahalia from the GMS Orlando camp. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Wakak Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yashar Allah, and a sincere salutation to all Yuwakim, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the Akwath, who are believing this word, and all truth and in sincerity. Yahweh is the name of the one they ignorantly call God. Yahweh Shai is the name of the one they ignorantly call Jesus. Bahashem is in the name. Rakah is spirit. Kodash is holy. Akyam is brothers. Akwath is sisters. Shalom means peace. And Yashar Allah is Israel in ancient Paleo Hebrew. All right, and I want to go into a lesson on this through the spirit. I entitled this lesson, The Men of the Lord Are Peculiar. And I want to go through some examples through the spirit of how, the Lord called the prophets. Lord, will we be a part of that number from different walks of life, from different places, from different ways, from different tribes. And they all had different testimonies, if you will. And the same thing is happening now in these last days through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemel Shai. All right, this is why I emphasize peculiar. All right, and I want to use this verse first and foremost. This is Exodus chapter 19 and 5, and it reads, "Now therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine." Now the Lord is talking to us as a nation of people. All right, the Lord said that we were a holy nation unto him. But in these last days, only a remnant will return to Yahweh Shema Shai. All right. And the remnant, if you will, is a peculiar treasure unto the Lord. All right. Now, when you get this word peculiar treasure, all right, it's Segalah or Sagalah. All right. It says possession, property, value, property, peculiar treasure, treasure. All right. Strong's definition says to shut up, wealth as closely shut up, jewel, peculiar treasure, proper, good, special. All right. And when you deal with, the prophets, as an example through the spirit, and the main focus of this lesson, the Lord called them out of different walks of life. They were peculiar in a sense. As a matter of fact, let's get the Webster's definition of peculiar. All right. So we'll go to Webster Merriam. It says peculiar, says characteristic of only one person, group, or thing, different from the usual or normal. All right. And it's beautiful, right? Because again, the Lord didn't call an entire family. Those who believe through the spirit, you're an example of that. The Lord didn't call your entire family, he called you out of darkness. Whatever walk of life you had was taken from you and given, and the Lord is giving you this light, this understanding. You were taken out of darkness, and now the Lord has brought you into this light. And amongst your family, you will be considered peculiar. All right, you will be again different from the usual or normal. Now, when you look at the history of us as a nation of people, all right, particularly when you deal with the prophets, because when we were taught Christianity, you have this idea of what the men of the Lord are and who they are. And then you get to see behind the veil, all right, behind that darkness, and you get to understand it in a very different way from the rest of the world. All right. You see that, the men of the Lord were peculiar. They all came from different walks of life. So let's get an example of that. All right. This is Amos chapter 7 and verse 14. And it reads, "Then answered Amos and said to Amaziah, I was no prophet, neither was I a prophet's son, but I was an herdman and a gatherer of sycamore fruit. And the Lord took me as I followed the flock. And the Lord said unto me, Go, prophesy unto my people Israel. Now therefore hear thou the word of the Lord. Thou sayest, Prophesy not against Israel, and drop not thy word against the house of Isaac. All right, therefore, thus saith the Lord, thy wife shall be an harlot in the city, and thy sons and thy daughters shall fall by the sword, and thy land shall be divided by line, and thou shalt die in a polluted land, and Israel shall surely go into captivity forth of his land." Now, this is an example of the Lord calling, Amos from what he was before the Lord called him, which was a herdman and a gatherer of sycamore fruit, and he called him to be a prophet. Likewise, every brother has a testimony of what they were doing before the Lord called them. Because when you go into the scriptures and you actually understand it, there were more than just the main prophets that we hear about, that we read about. You know, there were more prophets than just Amos and Jeremiah and the popular names that we know. You know, let's get an example of that. All right. All right. So I want to go to Kings. First Kings, I believe it's the 19th chapter. Let's see. All right, yeah, this is a perfect example. This is First Kings chapter 19 and 1. It says, and Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and withal how he had slain all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger unto Elijah, saying, so let the gods do to me and more also, if I make not thy life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. And when he saw that, he arose and went for his life, and came to Beersheba, which belongeth to Judah, and left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat down under a juniper tree, and he requested for himself that he might die, and said, it is enough. Now, O Lord, take away my life, for I'm not better than my fathers. And as he lay and slept under a juniper tree, behold, then an angel touched him and said unto him, arise and eat. All right, now the reason I want to stop here through the Spirit is because when you look at the walk of the prophets in particular, you know, their life was rough, man. It was hard. You know, they weren't popular. You know, at a certain point, you know, Samuel is a perfect example. When the prophets walked into a city, you know, they knew the gravity of prophets in general. But when you look at our history as a nation of people, prophets were not men that were considered popular. They were men that were being put to death and persecuted for the testimony of Yahweh Shema Shah, for the message of the Lord. You know, you have moments, you have accounts of the prophets being in distress, of crying, you know, of begging the Lord to take their life away. This is an example with Elijah. You know, if we go to Numbers 11 and 11, I'll get that real quick before I jump back into First Kings 19. This is what Moses was saying. All right, this is Numbers 11 and 11. And Moses said unto the Lord, wherefore hast thou afflicted thy servant? And wherefore have I not found favor in thy sight, that thou mayest lay the burden of all this people upon me? Have I conceived all this people? Have I begotten them, that thou shouldest say unto me, carry them in thy bosom, as a nursing father beareth a sucking child, unto the land which thou swearest unto their fathers? Whence should I have flesh to give unto all this people? For they weep unto me, saying, give us flesh that we may eat. I am not able to bear all this people alone, because it is too heavy for me. And if thou deal thus with me, kill me, I pray thee, out of hand, if I have found favor in thy sight, and let me not see my wretchedness. All right, so this is an example of the prophets in distress. These the prophets were called out of different walks of life, you know, to do the service of the Heavenly Father, to present the message of the Heavenly Father to the children of Israel. And oftentimes they were in distress. All right. Now going back to First Kings 19, I want to jump down to verse 10. All right. I'll start at 9. It says, and he came thither unto a cave and lodged there. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him. And he said unto him, what doest thou here, Elijah? And he said, I have been very jealous for the Lord, power of hosts. For the children of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, thrown down thine altars, and slain thy prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life to take it away. Now, the reason I bring this out is because we don't know the name of those prophets that were slain with the sword. We don't know. All right. Which is an example of there being many prophets when you deal with the word of the Lord. All right. We just have the ones that are needful for salvation. We don't know their backstories, you know, and it's beautiful through the Spirit because, again, you know, brothers say this oftentimes. The apostles have mentioned it, you know, of us living through the book of Acts again. And one of the things you notice in the book of Acts is that they were called from all different types of lives, from all different walks of lives. You know, you're going to have brothers that come back from the streets, from college, you know, from just working a 9 to 5, from racing, you know, from music industry, you know, from medicine. You're going to have brothers, education. You're going to have brothers come from all walks of life. And every brother has a different testimony, which makes brothers peculiar in nature through the Spirit. You know, because the scriptures in Exodus, the 19th chapter, talked about the peculiar treasure. But then we go to Malachi, the 3rd chapter, in the 16th verse. It reads this: Then they that feared the Lord spake often one to another, and the Lord hearkened and heard it. And a book of remembrance was written before him for them that feared the Lord and that thought upon his name. And they shall be mine, saith the Lord of hosts, in that day when I make up my jewels, and I will spare them as a man spareth his own son that serveth him. Then shall ye return and discern between the righteous and the wicked, between him that serveth the Most High and him that serveth him not. So the Lord is gathering that peculiar treasure, if you will, beginning with the elect. All right, and these are examples of men who were called out of different walks of life, all right, to serve Yahweh Shema Shai. All right, not for naught. You know, there's a reward, but through the Spirit, you see examples of the men of the Lord being called from different areas. Let's get another one. All right, this is Jeremiah 1:1. The words of Jeremiah, the son of Hilkiah, Salakiah, of the priests that were in Anathoth in the land of Benjamin, to whom the word of the Lord came in the days of Josiah, the son of Ammon, king of Judah, in the 13th year of his reign. It came also in the days of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, unto the end of the 11th year of Zedekiah, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, unto the carrying away of Jerusalem captive in the 5th month. Then the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee, and before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. Then said I, Lord Yahweh Shema Shai, behold, I cannot speak, for I am a child. But the Lord said unto me, Say not, I am a child, for thou shalt go to all that I shall send thee, and whatsoever I command thee, thou shalt speak. You know, so this is another reminder. You know, imagine a child carrying the word of the Heavenly Father. You know, even when you deal with Yahweh Shai and the disciples, you know, they were fishers. They were fishermen, some of them, you know. Matter of fact, let's get that. Let's go to Matthew 4. So it's Matthew 4:18, and it reads, And Yahweh Shai, walking by the Sea of Galilee, saw two brethren, Simon called Peter and Andrew his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishers. And he saith unto them, Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. And they straightway left their nets and followed him. Now that's, you know, you think about the brothers, you know, get called through the Spirit. You know, they all have a different testimony of what they were doing before they were in the truth. And when they heard this word, it clicked. You know, it don't say that Simon and you know, Peter or Andrew had a second thought. You know, they dropped what they were doing and they followed Yahweh Shai. You know, but another point is that they were fishermen. You know, so we have an example of Amos, who was a herdsman. You know, Jeremiah, who said that he was a child. And now we fast forward to Yahweh Shai, calling Peter and Andrew, and they were fishermen. You know, so they all got called out of different walks of life. And then when you really look at it through the Spirit, you know, every brother has a unique spirit to a degree. You know, it's almost like a prism. You know, I remember the first time I met Yeshaya from the West Palm camp. You know, we were talking about it through the Spirit, and it's almost like a prism. You know, when a light hits a prism, depending on the angle it hits, you'll get like a different color. It's still the same light, but the color is different depending on the angle. You know, and every brother has their own walk, their own life experiences through the Spirit, and they're able to bring that to the truth, and that makes them slightly unique. You know, when you think about the temple being built, you know, it's a spiritual temple at this point, and every brick isn't necessarily the same size or shape. You know, every brick has to fit, as the scriptures say. Let me get that. All right, this is Ephesians 4, and I'll start at 9. All right, and it says, now that he ascended, what is it but that he also descended first into the lower parts of the earth? He that descended is the same also that ascended up far above all heavens, that he might fill all things. And he gave some apostles, and some prophets, and some evangelists, and some pastors and teachers, for the perfecting of the saints, for the work of the ministry, for the edifying of the body of Yahweh Shah HaMashiach, till we all come in the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of Yahweh Shai, unto a perfect man, unto the measure of the stature of the fullness of Hamashiach, that we henceforth be no more children, tossed to and fro and carried about with every wind of doctrine, by the sleight of men and cunning craftiness whereby they lie in wait to deceive, but speaking the truth in love, may grow up into him in all things, which is the head, even Hamashiach, from whom the whole body, fitly joined together and compacted by that which every joint supplieth, according to the effectual working in the measure of every part, maketh increase of the body unto the edifying of itself in love. All right, and the point was in 16 of saying fitly joined together, meaning everything it won't be exact. Every brother's growth won't look the same. Just like the men of the Lord, their walks were all different. But were they not men of the Lord? You know, Paul talked about that, having some that are forward, some who aren't. Every brother's gonna have particular qualities through the Spirit. And every man of the Lord is not gonna present himself the same way. And what I mean by that is you have brothers who are more quiet, you have brothers who are more extroverted. Moses was mentioned as one of the meekest men among men. All right, matter of fact, let me see if I can grab that real quick. This is Numbers 12:3. It says, now the man Moses was very meek above all the men which were upon the face of the earth. All right, because again, you have some that will. Elijah's a perfect example, right? Elijah during his interaction with the prophets of Baal, he was mocking them. You could say that Elijah was very bold in that moment. Now, when you look at Moses, he's described as very meek, which shows you have different qualities and characteristics of the men of the Lord. And it's beautiful through the Spirit because, again, it's all fitly framed together. This is why I'll just grab it. Paul the Apostle Paul, Salakia, talks about this, 1 Corinthians 12:1. Now, concerning spiritual gifts, brethren, I would not have you ignorant. All right, let me jump down to verse 4. 1 Corinthians 12:4. Now, there are diversities of gifts, but the same Spirit. And there are differences of administrations, but the same Lord. And there are diversities of operations, but it's the same power which worketh all in all. All right, because Paul talked about that, how there's different gifts, but also there's different qualities to every brother, and it's all to fitly frame together for the building up the ministry. You look at the life of the prophets, the men of the Lord in ancient times, they all came from different walks of life. We don't get every detail of their life, but you can see, from what was given to us through the Spirit, that they all were called out of different places. And it's beautiful when you look at what's going on now through the Spirit, that the Lord is calling, the remnant again from all the four corners of the earth. And they're coming from all walks of life, not just the men of the Lord, but the sisters that are also slated for mercy through the Spirit, called from all walks of life. You think about Mary Magdalene, Yahweh Shah made the reference of harlots making it into the kingdom before, those who had professed themselves to be righteous during the time of Yahweh Shah. And it's beautiful now just meditating on it and going through these examples through the Spirit of how, the Lord called men from different walks of life with different qualities and and how he did that for the prophets and how he's doing it again. You know, even how the Lord has given the truth to men that are not looked at as learned men of this world. It happened in the ancient world. It happened during the time of Acts. Let's get that. All right, this is Acts 4 and 13. Now, when they saw the boldness of Peter and John and perceived that they were unlearned and ignorant men, they marveled and they took knowledge of them that they had been with Yahushua. Which reminds me, right? You know, you think about the Lord calling Amos, who was a herdsman, and giving him this understanding, giving him this revelation. You know, he would be considered an unlearned man because during that time you had men who were dedicated to the letters, meaning they were dedicated to learning the laws, they were dedicated to reading the prophets, you know. But then you would have men that were herdsmen, you know, Yahweh Shai being a carpenter as a trade, King David being a shepherd. You know, you had men who were called out of those walks, and then you had a prophet like Daniel, you know, who was of the royal seed. So it shows you the degrees, right, from the top to the bottom, how the Lord calls, and it's a blessing, you know. But when they're on the earth through the Spirit, it's a very rough life. They weren't the popular men. They weren't the men that were widely accepted. They were the men that were persecuted. You know, they were oftentimes put to death. You know, this is why Yahweh Shah said in Matthew the 5th chapter, you know, blessed are ye when men revile you, because that was the stead of the prophets, if you will. You know, they weren't liked men, but at the same time, they weren't all called from the same place, which shows you it was the Spirit of the Lord. Imagine Amos, you know, a herdsman, or even, you know, Peter and Andrew, you know, being considered fishermen. And then to see them confound the scribes and Pharisees who had spent their entire life learning about the law, statutes, and commandments. Yahweh Shai himself confounding those men. You know, though being called out of these different places, because being a fisherman was kind of like how you would look at construction workers today. You know, men that would be considered rude, you know, maybe bold, but not necessarily considered learned men. And the Lord does that to show that it's his power, that it's not of men, lest any man can boast. And another thing you notice is that most of those men, you know, especially the prophets, when the Lord called them, they tried to get up out of that jam. They thought you know, nah, Lord, I'm a child. I can't do that. Matter of fact, let's get the example with Moses. All right, this is Moses, the testimony, you know, when the Lord talked to Moses and basically called him, and what Moses said to the Lord. All right, this is Exodus 4. Hold on. Let me start up a little bit. Yeah, I'll start at 10. All right, this is Exodus 4 and 10. And Moses said unto the Lord, O my Lord, I am not eloquent, neither heretofore, nor since thou hast spoken unto thy servant, but I am slow of speech and of a slow tongue. All right, and when you really go into that through the Spirit, you know, it was because Moses, he wasn't very fluent as far as the Hebrew. You know, it doesn't mean that he was like he had a speech impediment. It just means that he wasn't really, you know, eloquent concerning the Hebrew like that. But this is an example of the Lord calling him, and you know, Moses basically saying, "Lord, don't send me." You know, Jeremiah was like, "Lord, don't send me." Jonah tried to, you know, catch a bus, you know, a ship ticket, if you will, to Tarshish. You know, those men that were called, they didn't necessarily want to do it, but the Lord put the Spirit on them to do it, so that no man can boast, because it's all from Yahweh Shem Shai. You know, and as I think about it through the Spirit, it's so beautiful because, you know, just speaking as a man, when you are able to fellowship with brothers, you can see the beauty of the Lord and how the Lord has unique spirits. You know, every brother has a particular spirit. You know, it's the same light, it's the same mind through the Spirit, but every brother has different qualities. And it's beautiful when you look at it, because it's almost like, you know, in Malachi the 3rd chapter, when the Lord said he's making up his jewels, you know, you get to see the beauty of the Lord in every brother, you know. It's Exodus 4 and 11, and it reads, and the Lord said unto him, who hath made man's mouth? Or who maketh the dumb or deaf or the seeing or the blind? Have not I the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be with thy mouth and teach thee what thou shalt say. So the Lord never took excuses, man. You know, Lord willing, we are called and chosen, but the Lord never took excuses. He always called men out of different walks of life, and then the Lord was with those men. You know, and it's happening again in 2024, you know, through the Spirit, beginning with our apostles, of course, and the bishops and the elders. You know, you see the body of Yahweh Shema Shah coming back together, man. And it's beautiful to witness, you know, especially when you look at the records in our history and then how this is just following right behind that history, that legacy, you know. This is Psalms 65:4, and it reads, Blessed is the man whom thou choosest and causes to approach unto thee, that he may dwell in thy courts. We shall be satisfied with the goodness of thy house, even of thy holy temple. And it's a blessing, you know. But when you look at those men's lives, it wasn't a rosy trip. It wasn't an easy trip for those men, no matter what walk of life they got called out of. You know, you have those who were bolder than others. Peter cut one of those Israelites that came to get the Lord. Peter cut his ear off. You know, but then you have Jeremiah as an example is considered a child. You know, Moses is considered meek amongst all men. So you have these different qualities, these different characteristics. Because outside looking in, you know, you think that every prophet was rah-rah. And, you know, you look at the accounts of our forefathers like King David, and you see the many feats of King David. Then you also see King David praying to the Lord, weeping. You know, Yahweh Shah's walk, being in the garden, sweating blood. Matter of fact, one of the shortest verse in the scriptures, John 11:35. Let's get the context. All right, this is John 11:31. The Jews then which were with her in the house and comforted her when they saw Mary, that she rose up. Let me start up. Salakia. Yeah, I got to get all of this. This is John 11:17. Then when Yahushua came, he found that he had lain in the grave 4 days already. Now Bethany was nigh unto Jerusalem, about 15 furlongs off. And many of the Jews came to Martha and Mary to comfort them concerning their brother. Now this is dealing with Lazarus, all right? This is dealing with Lazarus. Verse 20 reads, Then Martha, as soon as she heard that Yahushua was coming, went and met him, but Mary sat still in the house. Then said Martha unto Yahushua, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. But I know that even now, whatsoever thou wilt ask of the Most High will give it thee. Yahushua saith unto her, Thy brother shall rise again. Martha saith unto him, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Yahushua said unto her, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. Yahushua was cold, man. And whosoever, Yahushua is cold, Salakia. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Believest thou this? She saith unto him, Yea, Lord, I believe that thou art the Hamashiach, the son of Yahweh Shai, which should come into the world. And when she had so said, Salakia, she went her way and called Mary her sister secretly, saying, The master is come and calleth for thee. As soon as she heard that, she arose quickly and came unto him. Now Yahweh Shai was not yet come into the town, but was in the place where Martha met him. Then Jews, which were with her in the house, and comforted her, when they saw Mary, that she rose up hastily and went out, followed her, saying, She goeth unto the grave to weep there. Then when Mary was come where Yahushua was, and saw him, she fell down at his feet, saying unto him, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. When Yahushua therefore saw her weeping, and the Jews also weeping, which came with her, he groaned in the spirit and was troubled, and said, Where have ye laid him? They said unto him, Lord, come and see. Yahushua wept. Then said the Jews, Behold how he loved him. Hey, because Yahweh Shah, you know, Yahweh Shah is an austere man, but Yahweh Shah went through all the emotions that brothers go through, you know, on a smaller level, brothers feel it too, man. You have compassion for Jake. We love our people through the spirit, but we understand that they got to go on this side. There's nothing else that the Lord can do outside of death by pain for 2/3 of our people. But this is an example of Yahweh Shai showing that compassion, even though Yahweh Shai was an austere man. He went through every range of emotion. And these are just examples through the spirit of the prophets, you know, as the scriptures show them. Because again, these are valiant men. These are famous men through the spirit, with the chief one being Yahweh Shai HaMashiach. But you get to see that they were still men. It reminds me of our apostles in their statement often that, they're not in an apartment sitting in the lotus position, levitating. They're men, because we look at our forefathers, they were men. They went through things through the spirit. They came from different walks of life, but they are Salakia, the peculiar treasure of Yahweh Shai Shai, along with the remnant. It's a beautiful thing through the spirit to have this understanding now through the spirit and see the Lord do this before it's completed. It's like watching a building being built and you can see where it's headed. But to even be here in this moment through the spirit is special. Lord willing, we be a part of that number. All right, this is Matthew chapter 13 and 16, and it reads, "But blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. For verily I say unto you, that many prophets and righteous men have desired to see those things which ye see, and have not seen them, and to hear those things which ye hear, and have not heard them." And this is an example, brothers waking up on this side through the spirit. Every brother has different testimonies. The prophets are coming back. Essentially, that's what's happening. The Lord is raising up the elect. As the Lord told Daniel he was standing his lot in the last days. That means everybody's coming back to stand in their lot. Which, 2/3, of course, but then the remnant. Those who were going through these trials and tribulations in ancient times that desired to see these things are now back witnessing these things. And it's beautiful through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shai Shai that we're here now through the spirit to witness this in the last captivity. Just witnessing the Lord gather us from the four corners of the earth. Lord willing, we be a part of that number. And how the Lord has raised up, his prophets, the apostles, as it were, appointed unto death. Let's get that. This is 1 Corinthians 4 and 9. And it reads, "For I think that the Most High hath set forth us, the apostles, last, as it were, appointed to death. For we are made a spectacle unto the world, and to angels, and to men." Which shows you those who were called by Yahweh Shai Shai will be made a spectacle. They would be reviled. They would be persecuted. They wouldn't be the ones that you say, "Rabbi, Rabbi," in the markets. So I just want to go into that through the spirit. It was on my spirit. I did a lesson earlier today, just kind of meditating on Yahweh Shai and, during his walk, how the world received him. Many Israelites believed him, but believed on him. Lord willing, we be a part of that number. But you had amongst the circumcision the scribes and Pharisees, how they looked at the ministry of Yahweh Shai, and that's happening again. But it also made me meditate on how the Lord called the prophets from all walks of life, from in all type of different personalities when you go through the record, and different offices and the things that they were a part of before the Lord called them, and the excuses they made, and how the Lord was like, "Nah, you're gonna do what I told you to do." And now those prophets are back. Lord willing, we be a part of that number, but those prophets are back to receive their reward for all the things that has happened to them in the ancient time. This is where they get to receive their reward. All right, so Lord willing, this was edifying with that. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Wakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yasha Allah. And a sincere salutation to all Yuakim, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the Akwak, who are believing this word in all truth and in sincerity. Shalom.